Welcome to LOA Today. I'm Walt Thiessen.
I've been doing this podcast since September of 2012, and boy, are my lips tired.
This is your daily dose of happy. We are so happy you decided to join us today.
And I find that I'm actually rushed today. This is not my normal thing going into doing a podcast, is being rushed. But today, all of a sudden, I'm rushed. And it's not like my whole day was going like that. But in the last couple hours, all of a sudden, time compressed magnificently, but unexpectedly. And, well, I'm just dealing with it. That's all there is to it. And Joel, from what you were telling me, you had kind of a similar thing going on today.
It's been a very bizarre day. Let's just say, and for me to say that, because the bar's so high for that, it's special. When I say that, it's a special day. So
that's a good way to look at it. I like that.
Yeah.
That's good.
Yeah.
You know, that way, well, that way, no matter what happens, you're dealing with frustrations, you're dealing with the rejections, you're dealing with craziness that happens out of the blue. As long as you got the attitude about it, you're going to get through it anyway, right? That's the whole point. That's the point of the mindset.
Yeah.
That's what we talk about all the time, right?
Absolutely.
So,
well, like you said, you're running late and all this, and it's at the end of the day, we're going to get here. We're what, 2 minutes late getting started.
Yeah, right.
So the stuff I'm dealing with, while certainly frustrating and a waste of time, one of the things that frustrates me is today my son, who recently just told me that, hey, Dad, I got a ticket today. So that was fun.
A lot of fun.
He got a ticket because not for doing anything wrong, other than in Virginia, when you're under 18, you can only have one passenger in the car.
Ah, yes.
So he ran into a couple guys that wanted to see his car. So he took them around the block, and of course, around the block, the cop noticed that he was.
Of course, perfect timing.
And Justin's very young looking, so it was really clear. So we have a court date on July 6th to see what the judge thinks of that move. But in the big scheme of things, Justin's safe, I'm safe, you're on time, sort of. And
sort of. I like the way you said that. Sort of. That was good.
Yeah, sort of. Yeah.
Well, our topic today, once again, comes from a book that you have recently read/listened to. You actually listen to your books rather than read them, which, by the way, I admire. I like the fact that you just take the time to do that and get a lot of books in. Because, I mean, I don't read half the books that you listen to, and you get more by doing that than I do. So I admire that. I like the fact that you do that.
Thank you. Last year I ended up with 67 books I listened to last year.
Wow. Yeah.
And this year I'm way ahead of that pace, so that's good.
So you're to cross the 100 throreshold, then, is what you're saying?
Yes. And
wow.
One of the things that I listen to Audible, and what they allow, and a lot of other formats allow this, I listen to it at twice the speed. So my brain, being an ADHD brain, I actually retain more at a faster speed. So
that's really interesting.
Yeah, and there's a lot of science behind that. So an ADD brain is one of the problems. We have a hard time with the slow world. Speed up our world, and the brain's ready to take it on. So I have a lot of my clients. We find what their speed is, so to speak, and it's a really effective tool to listen to things at a faster speed if you have that type of brain.
So, I mean, years ago, they used to talk about people who were speed readers. You're a speed listener.
Yes. One of my clients, he's 12, and he listens at 3 times the speed.
Wow.
And retains far more than if he were to read it or even listen to it at normal speed. So,
interesting.
And the brain adapts. What's funny is when you listen to it at 2 times the speed at the beginning, it's like, blah, 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 and then eventually your brain adjusts to it. And if you listen to it at regular speed, it's like, oh my God, that's terrible.
I can't handle this.
Yeah. It feels like you're like really slow.
Well, then I also have to ask you this, because you're a coach, right? You're working with clients every single day who speak at normal pace. They don't tend to speak at 2 to 3 times normal pace. Well, maybe some of them do. I don't know. But I would imagine most of them tend to speak at normal pace. Does that slow things down too much for you?
That's an entirely different thing. That when I'm having, you and I have a conversation, you're normal speed, I'm semi-normal speed. We're able to do that pretty well. So it communicating with a person in front of me is Now I do have some, again, some of my younger ADHD clients. If you ever listen to one of our conversations, it's really bizarre because we are really fast and all over the place.
Okay. So you actually talk and listen at twice the speed in a normal conversation. Uh-oh, got a freeze at your end. Hopefully that's going to clear up in just a minute. Toot sweet. Yeah, okay, here he comes.
Here we go. Hopefully that's our one time this week. But anyway,
yeah.
So listening is not a problem. And I really, I want to, because to me, looking at people talking and their body language, that's all necessary for what I do.
Yes.
I wouldn't want to force a fast conversation, but I do have a few of the little guys I work with that they'll just go, blah, 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 and I'm like, blah, 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 and it goes well.
Okay, so I got to ask on this one, because if they're talking at 2 times the speed or whatever, which is, substantial when you're having a conversation, is the body language twice as fast?
Yes, usually.
Is it really?
Yeah.
Wow.
Like I talk a lot with my hands, in case you haven't noticed. And when you're talking at a faster speed, the hands have to match the speed of the talk. So,
okay.
So it's unique. When part of my neuro-linguistic programming training is, the idea of not only do people have video and visuals, they learn better, audio, by touch, they feel better. But also within all of those, there's different categories within that. So even within audio, increased audio is sort of a secret tool that I use with a lot of my clients. And it's not for everyone, but the ones that, they really find it fascinating, they retain, 70% more when they listen to it at an increased speed because it matches what their brain is doing.
Interesting, too, that we're talking about the brain interpreting and being able to match the speed, because there was one year in the mid-1980s where I lived for 1 year in Oregon. And anyone who's lived on the West Coast and has interacted with people from the East Coast can probably tell you, particularly in the Northwest, from their perspective, we talk much too fast here on the East Coast. Yes. And literally, my new friends couldn't understand what I was saying. I had to learn to talk very slowly in order for them to understand me.
Yes. Well, regionally, I have a little bit of Spanish. I know a little bit of Spanish, so I'm not claiming to, but the Spanish that I know is very methodical and slow. If I'm talking to someone from another country, that's not the Spanish I learned, because they're like, blah, blah, blah. So right. I have to, I have very remedial Spanish skills, but if they're talking to me in English, I have to make sure that I enunciate and go slower for them, likely if they're not around it a lot. But the brain does adapt. Another analogy to this is I have a friend I went to high school with, and he was a Major League Baseball player, really, great. And so him and I were having a discussion one day about, I'm not a big baseball fan, so I'm like, it's baseball, bro. I mean, come on. And
not exactly the attitude that he probably thought he'd get with a coach, but okay, I get it.
Yeah. So we were, of course it was a jest. So he said, I could throw you 10 pitches and you would not be able to touch it.
That's true.
And so we went out to the high school field. Some kid caught for me. The first pitch, I didn't even see it go by me. The second pitch, I at least might have saw it for a second.
Yeah, right.
And by the time we got to and I started about the fourth pitch, I started swinging, and I couldn't even remotely time it.
Right.
But what shocked him, and on the 10th pitch, I barely tipped it, barely.
You made contact. Wow.
I made contact, which was sort of shocking. But my brain, each time he threw, and he was throwing, he said about 85 miles an hour, not his hardest. Okay. But the first time it just seemed like I've never seen anything that fast.
Sure.
But the brain does have the ability subconsciously it marks it. And so the last pitch, I saw it enough to tip it. Now I'm not claiming it would be a great story if I hit a home run or something.
That'd be fabulous. Yeah. Wow.
Yeah. But I was able to tip it. Now, also statistically, he's purposely throwing in a strike zone. Maybe just that's pure luck too. But it was very interesting, but it felt like it would adapt. He said the same thing. The idea that each level he stepped up, the pitches are so much faster, and to be able to, even though he's a pitcher in the major leagues, he also played multiple positions, in college, and so the idea that him hitting a college level speed pitch was crazy to him.
Yeah.
So yeah, but it makes a big difference. So the brain operates similar when it comes to being able to adapt to different things. The subconscious, once you do it, and the subconscious gets involved, and you start programming it. Like me listening to books at 2 times the speed, it seems super normal to me. There's not a moment that I hear it like, blah, 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 but if I just play that for you, you would be like, oh my gosh, it just sounds like gibberish.
This is an interesting foundation for the topic today, because you've mentioned NLP a couple times, and really what we're talking about here is what gets programmed into our nervous system, which of course is what NLP deals with. But the topic today being rejection proof, well, that's also programmed into the nervous system, whether you're rejection proof or not, right?
Absolutely.
I mean, what's programmed in there, that's the way you're going to behave. So why don't you give us the lay of the land where the book is concerned, and then we'll just kind of take it from there.
Okay, there's a fascinating thing, so I'm going to ask for your help to keep me on task today.
Okay.
Because there's an obvious part of this topic, and there's a surprise part of this topic. There's something that that wasn't in. It isn't intended, but I think you'll really appreciate it. So,
okay.
So if we get too far down our rabbit hole today, make sure I have 10 minutes to at least cover.
No problem. Yeah, I'll bring the rope. We'll be good. Yeah.
Okay, because the aliens are still there. So
that's right. They are. They've landed and they have gotten out their ray guns.
Yeah. So this book is by a gentleman. He was born in China, and I can't pronounce his name, so I don't want to embarrass trying to say it. But
sure.
He's a very smart man. He was born in China, and he came as an exchange student to the United States. And when he was in China, he either saw Bill Gates there or saw him on TV, but his goal was to be an entrepreneur from a young age.
Okay.
And his family was all teachers before that. It was, very much Asian culture. It is very much, you want to keep doing what the family does. It's like expectations and education. So
especially for males.
For males, exactly. It's just you have this plot. So being a teacher was going to be really important to him. And so he, at least to his family, but he wanted to be an entrepreneur. He had posters of Bill Gates when he was a kid. So when he came to the United States as a exchange student, his thought was, I'm going to go to the United States and become the next Bill Gates and be an entrepreneur. So that's pretty cool. So what he does, he goes to school, and I'm going to get a lot of this in a nutshell, obviously, and he does well. He gets accepted to college. I think it was business school at Duke. I mean, ended up some really good colleges.
Yeah.
And he ended up working a tech job, really high-paying tech job in California, but it was not entrepreneurial. He just got on with whatever the tech job is, and he says it. I don't remember what it was, but so he was not satisfied, but he was also pleased with his life. He was married. His wife was very supportive, and there were times he was really sad. His job was a high-paying job, and he on the paper, it looked like everything you could imagine. They had a house and a dog in California, and was living sort of the tech. But he always wanted to be an entrepreneur. And his wife was very supportive and said, I think he talks about one time he sort of broke down in front of her and says, this is not how I intended my life to go. So he wanted to start developing something. So his wife said, look, why don't you take 6 months and give it all you got to be an entrepreneur? Just take off. Let's quit or whatever and go all in.
Cool woman.
Really, and said, let's do this. So along the way, and this may have happened before this even, but he had the idea of shoes that had wheels in it, like roller skates in them. And before the product called Heelys was ever invented. So he had that idea. He had blueprints he had drawn out. And his uncle, who lived in the United States, was very uh, traditionally Chinese.
Mm-hmm.
And so but he also respected his uncle very much. So he called his uncle, very excited about this great idea he had. And his uncle said, absolutely not. That's
Shot it
ridiculous.
down. Yeah.
Yeah.
Mm.
So he put his stuff away. He just said, okay, that was stupid. I think I could do that. Well, within a few years, the guy that invented that, it's called Healy's, sold that company for like $1 billion after he got it
Mm.
to a peak. And it just,
Mm-hmm.
it's like that even compounded it worse for him. It's like, oh,
Right.
so along the way, he didn't feel fulfilled. That's when his wife said, look, take 6 months off and let's go do this and develop it. So he had this idea of developing an app. And as he was developing the app, he got the really good people, tech people from overseas, people here locally, and as you know, you've done similar type things. So he got a great team in developing the app.
Very important.
Yeah, and so he was really excited. They got it to the point of needed it to be funding, and so he went to one of these incubator funding type groups and applied. The guy was very impressed, and so he was waiting. This is about 4 months into his 6 months.
Oh, okay.
And so it was getting a little bit down the road, and everything was relying on this funding. If this funding hits for this app, it's going to be great, and if it doesn't, it's not.
It's all over, yeah. Mm.
So he described himself being at dinner and with his wife, and the email came in, and he went outside. He opened it up, and they said, "No, we're not going to fund this."
Mm.
So he was just heartbroken. He said he was just devastated. He thought this was it. Maybe he's not an entrepreneur. Maybe he's not able to do this.
Yeah.
And so his wife, who I like her a lot, by the way, I've never met her clearly, but in her book, she comes up and she goes, "Are you kidding me? I said you have 6 months. You don't have 4 months. You have 6 months."
Ah, good for her.
So, and she said, you need to work on your rejections part. If you're going to be in business, you got to develop a thicker skin. So he found this guy in Canada that had a training program about being rejected and how to improve that. And he said, the guy's program was like, why don't you go out and intentionally ask people questions to get rejected from? Just learn that and just try to get immune to being rejected.
Mm.
And so for some reason that really interests him. So he started to do a blog on this. And he explained he's going to get 100 days, 100 rejections. He's going to, or either yes or no, but they're all going to be awkward situations.
Mm.
So the very first one in the building that had his little startup office in, he went downstairs and there's a security guard. Now he didn't know the security guard. He walked up to him and goes, "Can I borrow $100?"
Okay, that's awkward. Yeah.
Yeah. The security guard said no. And he's like, okay, he's like, okay. But the security guard said, "Why?" But he didn't answer that. He just walked off. He was terrified.
Mm.
Now, rejection is a minor traumatic event to the brain. The body responds to being rejected with a tiny bit of opiate. It like you're damaged. Your body feels damaged being rejected. Remember we talked about the mind map a week or two ago?
Right.
And well, being rejected violates that mind map. It makes you feel like you're in danger. So rejection is one of the worst things that we can go through, is at least, until we learn to understand it. So he understood that, but he also, he was video recording this when he asked the guy, but he went back and he watched the video and he goes, "I totally missed that the guy said why."
Oh, yeah.
He said, "That's a no." So the next one, and I'll just throw several. I don't remember the exact order, but one of them, he went to a Krispy Kreme donut at the rush hour, and this was sometime during when the Olympics were here, and he asked the manager, "So can you make me the Olympic ring symbol in the right colors out of donuts?"
I love it.
And she looked at him, took out her pen and said, "Give me a minute." And he said, "When do you need these?" And he goes, "Right now." And so he was expecting, this is ridiculous. So she comes back in a little while with the drawing and said, "Does this look right?" She put it she fixed it, came out, and he had his Olympic ring donuts.
Wow.
And so, again, he's recording that, and he said, oh my gosh, why did you do that? And she said, I've never heard that. I was interested in that, and I like something new. So from that became a viral video, and his blog then started taking off, right? So
Okay.
he kept doing these things. Some of them, they were pretty bizarre. He went to Five Guys Burgers and asked. He saw a sign on the soda machine that said free refills. So he went up to the desk and said, "Could you refill my burger, please?" And
He was very creative with the stuff to get rejected
yeah.
on. I got to give him credit for that.
Yeah. So he was, and each time he was getting more and more comfortable asking more and more bizarre things. And what he would find, I mean, clearly they're not going to give him another burger, but the guy
Right.
behind the counter said, "I can't do that, but I can do this." He gave him like a coupon or something.
Right.
Something. Just, yeah. So he started noticing that no matter how bizarre the requests are, that, some were straight nose. So the one that I laughed at, it was on a Sunday afternoon, and he's in the Dallas area.
Mm-hmm.
So he pulls up to this house in the suburbs. Nice house, has a big Dallas Cowboys flag on. The Cowboys were on TV at that moment in a playoff game.
Okay.
And so he rings the doorbell, and he's wearing soccer shorts, and and has a soccer ball in his hand. The man answers the door, and he goes, "Can I play soccer in your backyard and you film me?" And I don't need to get in. I mean, this is Dallas. This is Texas.
That's right. Anybody who knows American football knows.
Yeah. And here's this Asian guy showing up at this guy's house. So this is when things turn for him. The guy goes, "Okay." And so he goes and kicks the ball around. The guy films him. He said, and so the guy who wrote the book said, "Why did you say yes?" And he goes, "I've never had anybody ring my doorbell, ask me to play soccer and film. I just wanted to see where this was going." And so he had 100 of these things that was good. So as he was doing this, his blog and these videos started taking off. He ended up being on the what is the Survivor host name? Jeff something?
Oh, yeah.
Prost or something, maybe. Anyway, so he had a show. Word got to him. He went on national TV talking about this concept of his blog and how to learn to be rejected. Not, and he also started learning the intricacies of asking and being rejected. So most people just wanted to know why. And so like Southwest Airlines, he was on a flight with Southwest Airlines, and the guy said, "Can I do the seatbelt announcement?" And Southwest is a pretty fun airline. They always are joking anyway. So the guy's like, "No, federal regulations say all passengers have to be seated. You're a passenger, so you wouldn't be able to do it." He goes, "However, you could do the welcome announcement." So he was able to do the welcome announcement on the plane, got a standing ovation for that. So he kept finding these scenarios, and he was getting more and more shocked that the rejection, the more confident he became, and the more he almost gave them a reason to, "Well, I'm doing this or I'm doing that." It's like, yeah. And there were still people who are absolutely no.
Sure.
But like, one afternoon he got a bunch of apples from the grocery store and went around outside handing out apples to people. And, because apples have, all the razor blade rumors and all that other stuff. So he was shocked that one lady took the apple and just bit out and said, "That was great, thanks." And
wow.
He's like, "Wow, I would have done that." And without context, somebody gives you an apple, it's pretty weird.
Yeah.
So the all of this started happening. That's what allowed him to write this book. So the guy that owned Zappos at the time, before he sold to Amazon, who Zappos is? Online shoe people.
Right. Okay.
Yeah. They sold to Amazon for billions in 2016, I think.
Mm-hmm.
But the guy still was running Zappos, and the guy running Zappos heard of him and called him out to give a talk to his company, offered him a job. So all this stuff, he didn't take the job, but all this stuff started happening when he realized, my fear of rejection. So he started becoming rejection proof. In fact, he actually realized the ability to ask. He learned several sales lessons. He learned several things within that process. So he's become a speaker, a coach, He wrote this book that we're talking about. It was a bestseller. I don't know what he's currently doing. I haven't checked on him recently. This book's 4 or 5 years old, but the premise of so many of us are worried about rejection. How many questions are not asked because of fear of rejection? How many opportunities? God, yeah. I mean, think about it. And I know in my life, and I'm pretty straightforward, but there's times like, well, there's no way to say yes to that.
Sure.
And so you automatically start filtering. So one of the things along the way that he did was his uncle that originally told him that no about the Healy's idea. He circled back to him and he goes, why did you say no? Was it because you didn't want me to be an entrepreneur? And his uncle said, no, I thought it was a stupid idea. I was wrong, but it was a stupid idea. And I always believed in you. The entrepreneur stuff's great. So he realized he had he made an assumption that his uncle was against him being an entrepreneur, when in reality, his uncle thought it was a bad idea. And then later admitted, I'm not always right. I can make mistakes. So
that's a really important point right there. I don't want to skip past that. Yeah, that's really important.
That's what I'm circling back. Because what he's able to do is then he realized that rejection has a lot of assumption of why attached to it.
Right.
And very few times are people rejecting you. They're rejecting your ideas. They're rejecting the concept. Like this is another example of there's a guy, he wanted to go exchange a coaching session with a personal trainer. So he was going to coach somebody on business, and the personal trainer was going to coach him. And the personal trainer worked for Anytime Fitness, and he was under contract, and he wouldn't be able to do that. But as they discussed it, and they said what he's doing, the guy said, well, to be honest with you, I had no interest in doing a blog or these things you're doing. I want to be a fireman. So the request had no value. He said, however, I have a friend that owns a gym. He's a personal trainer as well. Call him. So he, even in rejection, he found solutions. People often offer an alternative solution, which may be better than the first thing in the first place.
It's a great point.
So by when we go get rejected, we're not always rejected. We can be redirected. Sometimes rejection is just redirection. And that mindset of understanding, because everyone assumes that their rejection is about them personally. It is almost never about them personally, ever.
It's a really important point. And it's important on a number of different levels. One level that it's important on, in my opinion, ties into something that Abraham Hicks once talked about, in that when someone is in some way, not just rejection, in any way responding or interacting with you in a negative way, I don't remember what the exact quote is, but the gist of it is, it has nothing to do with you. It has to do with them. It has to do with what's going on in their mind, with their mindset, with their, the thing that they're dealing with. And you just happen to be, you were caught in the crossfire is what it amounts to. Yeah.
She says that several times. You're right. It's, and I realize that people are they're responding from where they're at. The idea that, I've rejected people based, when my situation was.
We've got another freeze. Well, if we're true to form, this should clear in about 20 seconds. So we'll just kind of count that down. And right about now, I should see Joel's signal disappear for a moment. Yep, there it goes.
There we go.
Okay, back again. There we are.
So I have, there's times that I've rejected people. Like there's a guy on Facebook. He's a life coach. I don't really know who he is. So he sends me a message every now and then. Like he says, would you like to increase your client flow? And I'm like, I wrote him back and said, no, I'm good. Thanks. I don't want to be a sales pitch on how he can help increase my client. It might be great stuff, but I have all the clients I possibly can handle. So I and finally had to explain to him, I'm not rejecting you, because he kept asking. I said, I'm sure your program is great. I have a waiting list. So, and so I had to let him know that I wasn't rejecting him or his product. I just don't have a need for what he's offering.
Yeah, you weren't really a fit. That's all.
Yeah. And it would be disingenuous to actually agree to listen to his presentation. But I have no intention of ever using it anyway.
Right.
So it helps to, not only does this book help you to deal with the rejection better, it also helps you reject people in a more kind way where they don't feel it's about them, and which is really important because you never know in the future, when your path may cross. You don't want to burn bridges with negative stuff. So understanding that, this just doesn't fit my lifestyle right now. It's not what I'm interested in right now, or I don't need this right now. And it's not about you. I'm sure your program is fantastic. It's just not what I'm needing. So that's really important.
This topic is really hitting home for me in a number of different ways. I imagine it probably is for a lot of listeners too. One way that it's hitting for me, and you know this story, and listeners know this story too, that I've been through this divorce and I've had all this life-changing stuff going on. The last big thing that I'm working on still is trying to find that next relationship. And so I've been doing some dating, not a lot, but I've been doing some dating. I met one woman who, it was one of the few cases where I was actually feeling chemistry with her, like, okay, this is exciting, this is good, this is going in the right direction. And then long story short, I found out that she has a victim complex. For good reason. Her background was miserable, horrible stuff going on in her background, but she was convinced that it could never get better. She would always be miserable about it. She would never ever improve. And as soon as I heard that, I knew that the relationship couldn't possibly work. Now, I could have treated that, and to a certain extent, at first, I did treat that as I was being rejected because she vocalized it in a way that basically said, I reject you.
Right.
But I quickly realized that it really wasn't me who was being rejected. In fact, in some ways, I was the one doing the rejecting because I knew it wasn't going to work if I was involved with somebody who had that kind of a mindset. And it really, what was going on really had nothing to do with me, and my belief about her really had nothing to do with her. It's just that we were not connecting on an important level, and that's all there was. There really was no rejection going on. It seemed like it, though. Right. It seemed like it.
Well, yeah, and that's the key. It still felt it was rejection as perceived by the body.
Right.
And so that's why it felt that way. But logically, you walk it around and it was never about you anyway.
No.
Yeah.
No, not even for a second.
No.
This whole idea of what he did, though, is really, really cool because basically he found a way to coach himself.
Yes.
I mean, that's the kind of thing, if the guy that he had gotten these ideas from was a coach, I imagine that he would probably sit down with him and, okay, let's run through some scenarios and we'll decondition your rejection thing. I imagine it's part of what they would do. But he found a way to do that himself. I give him a lot of credit for doing that.
Well, yeah, he took this guy's program and sort of made his own program, made a blog and a video blog over it, recorded it. And, like I said, the Krispy Kreme donut incident went viral, had millions of views.
Yeah, that would work.
Yeah. And the show he went on, they invited the Krispy Kreme donut manager. Krispy Kreme got massive publicity. They were very pleased with that. So there's a lot of things when you realize it's like the idea that we walk around and a lot of wounds that we've had before. I've had my heart broken. I've probably unintentionally broken hearts. I've had for a long time. I had a very fragile ego from a lot. Had a really rough childhood, rejected by my biological father. There's a lot of stuff that you condition yourself so that you were always on awareness of rejection, and we're filtering for it and protecting for it. I know. I know people that are scared to ask for anything because the fear of rejection exceeds the benefit of asking, and it's really sad. And one of my clients we're really working hard at this. He realized he was probably 16 at the time. He said, "Is it weird?" He said, "I needed ketchup the other day at McDonald's, and I was scared to go ask the lady for ketchup." He goes, why is that happening? And it's like, we talked about the process, and I said, you desensitize yourself. And he made a point, this is, I didn't use this book as an example, but first of all, it's her job to give you ketchup. And if she says no or whatever reason, it's her attitude. And, and we all could benefit more by not being fearful of rejection and asking that question, because it's all, and there are people that are going to reject you outright just for no reason. It's just their condition. They got their own stuff going on. But also the answer is always no if you don't ask. So rejection, fear of rejection can prevent any possibility of happening. And
It's an important thing, though, and I want to make sure we don't skip over it, because he asked a great question. Because it's clearly his question made it very clear. He understood that it was actually higher value to go ask for the ketchup than to be afraid, and yet he was asking, why is it that I'm so much more afraid? That's a really valid question.
Right. And when we really get into a deep psychological dive, he's another young man that father left when he was 6. He was abandoned by his father. He desperately craved a relationship for his father. And, he was rejected at a young age. It's sort of like a term I use, anxiety brain. People that were born into anxious situations develop an anxiety brain. So hypothetically, we can also have a rejection brain. When you're rejected early, we are filtering that rejection on everything we see. So even the most benign idea or ask can seem really scary. And you don't know why, because again, the body responds as if it's like a minor trauma.
I think that's the key word right there, a trauma. It doesn't really matter whether, actually the size of the trauma doesn't matter at all.
Right.
Anything that causes any level of trauma is still a trauma as far as the subconscious mind is concerned. It doesn't, it can't really measure the difference.
It has, we always talk, it has no emotion. It doesn't understand. Yeah. It's just trauma, rejection, trauma.
Right.
It categorizes that. It feels like you're in danger, but you're not, but it feels like it.
So, I mean, it's certainly obvious how he could be, how a person could be traumatized by a father who rejected him. But I guess my point is, it doesn't have to be that severe. It can be something much more simple and mundane that we wouldn't even notice as, there's a trauma going on there, but if it feels like a trauma and it behaves like a trauma subconsciously, it's still a trauma.
Well, and I have a scenario when I was about 12 or 13. I was in our little church choir, and we, you have all these, roughly the same age kids around. And,
sure.
My, as you can probably guess right now with this voice, while I'm not the greatest singer on the planet, I'll just go out and say that.
We'll just say that you blew your voice out by 18. We'll put it that way.
Yeah, exactly.
Okay.
Yeah. So one time, the lady that was, the church choir director, I'm singing loud and thinking I am the best singer on the planet, and boldly, singing the Christian songs and all that. And she just shakes her head. She says, "Everybody stop." She goes, "Joel, can you just move your lips?"
Oh, geez, really? Did you say
that? Yeah.
Whoa, yeah, there's a shot.
Yeah.
Whew.
And I'm like, why? And she goes, "You're too loud. You're off key. It's just horrible." And I'm like, oh. So right off the bat, it seems minor. Of course, it doesn't matter now. But
as a kid, though, I could see where a kid be pretty strongly affected by that.
Especially in front of everybody.
Oh, yeah.
That your ego at that age is based on what the people standing around you are
right.
so,
yeah.
Of course, there's a lot of snickers and all that. And of course, my buddies the next several days were like, "Can you just move your lips?"
Yeah.
So that sort of became a catchphrase for a while. So that level, not that I want to sing, but I have not, maybe in my car by myself, but I would never sing in front of another human being for any reason.
Understandable, yeah.
Yeah. And it's something that it affects you on a level. That's a different type of rejection, but it's that same thing that has a lifelong effect. That's been, I don't know, I just do math. It's been, 48 years ago, that happened, whatever it is. And that's still there. I remember it. So it's been stored.
It's a great example.
I don't harbor resentment, but it's certainly, I cringe when I think about that. And there's little events, where these things get the perception of rejection and being, outcast or whatever. It affects the body in a traumatic way, and they get stored forever and ever. So you're always filtering for, rejection. I have, probably, one of the things I've shared with you, I won't get to tell a story I was an exceptionally skinny kid, very thin, very thin. I was always very subconscious about that, self-conscious about it. And, so today I still have this image. You know, I'm 225 pounds. I lift weights. I'm pretty decent shape.
Mm.
But there's a side of me that when I was at the beach this weekend. I'm like, if I take off my shirt, I mean, I still have this weird feeling
Wow.
that's there. So there's like this. Now I've done a lot of work around it. I obviously look in the mirror and go, I'm anything but skinny. I'm
Yeah,
anything
sure.
but.
Sure.
But yet there's still this. So these things last, and they're not easily erased, and they stay with you. And it's a really, really important thing. Rejection tops that list. When when I give talks, the biggest crowd I've spoken to this point is 5,000 people, and which is a pretty good crowd.
Oh yeah,
And
that's a good size.
yeah, and the advice I had right before I went on stage, there was this guy. There was a group of, we were talking, about mindset and law of attraction was my topic, and so the guy, when I went out there and I looked around the corner and I'm like, oh my gosh, that's a lot of people. I was like, oh, I've talked very freely with hundreds, but 5,000.
Right. Yeah, that was a bit much.
Yeah, it's a bit. So the guy's advice was, he said, you didn't get here by mistake, and your brain's creating the scenario by seeing all those people there. He said, in reality, you're fearing they're going to reject you, and you got to understand they came to see you, not reject you. And there's something about that last statement before I went out there, and I said, they came to see me. That's right. That's pretty cool.
Yeah.
And I just went out there and I started, and all it takes is the first 30 seconds I might have or whatever, but I got rolling. And once I get rolling, it's great.
I've noticed that actually. Yes.
Yeah. Once that brain gets engaged and heading that freight train in the right direction, we're good.
It's all over. Yep.
Yeah. So, but when fear of public speaking is often a fear of being rejected or your ideas rejected.
Yes.
When people are giving TED Talks, one of the things they worry about most in a poll is, are they going to reject my idea? It's when I gave a talk one time to a group of psychiatrists down in Norfolk, and it's the Virginia Psychiatric Association.
Oh yeah. And intimidating.
Very intimidating group of men. And I'm a life coach. So, that half of them are looking at me like, what are you? I mean, they're, now some of them knew me and very much respected me, but some of them, and so my talk, I was describing how the law of attraction in general, or energy attraction works. And everybody was open to the idea. I said, your patients that are expecting a better outcome always have a better outcome. The patients that aren't do not. And I've been shaking their head. And so this one guy.
I knew there had to be one guy. There just had to be one.
There had to be one guy. So after I give my talk, I'm open to, and I was getting some really good questions. And I said, well, I use the term law of attraction. I said, that might be a little too woo-woo for you guys, but there's certainly an energy attraction, and I can get everybody to agree on that, except this one guy.
Except for the one guy.
Yeah. And so in front of all his peers, he said, one of my favorite lines of all time, it worked out perfectly. He said, Mr. Elston, the only reason this works for you is you believe it works for you.
Ooh, he walked into it.
And I said, absolutely. Thank you for framing that. Yes,
yeah.
You're right. And everybody breaks up laughing. So now his attempt to humiliate me sort of
backfired. Yeah, really.
and afterwards, I went up to him and I said, I did not mean to do that. I did not. I want to. And he goes, no. He said, it's sort of fair because I was trying to trip you up. And he said, you served that really fast back to me. So I respect that. So, but yet there's always that. But the fear of rejection, when I first started talking on this topic, and we talked a few weeks ago about me and my advocating for therapeutic use of psilocybin. Those were topics that I had a really hard time talking about because I didn't want to be rejected on that. Like when I work with clients, can I bring the law of attraction into our therapy? How quick can I? Usually I build them up to it and see if they're ready for it. Now I just start at it. It's like, well, it's we're going at it. And not shockingly, most people really have no problem with it. And if they do have a problem with it, I'm not really the right therapist for you or coach for you.
Sure.
So, the ideas that we worry about being rejected from, until you get to a point where I can't, in my mind, I can't really imagine I'm not fearful of being rejected on any level. I mean, it's just this idea that it's either going to be yes or no, and my world, not going to be canceled, or that nothing's going to change for me if somebody rejects me. So, it's a wonderful way to live, but it took me a long, long time to get there. And this gentleman's concept of desensitizing yourself to rejection is a really good tool.
It is, yeah. Well, it sounds like it's kind of taking what we often talk about when we talk about self-esteem and self-confidence to an ultimate level. Because really, self-confidence, self-esteem, they are really just ways of not minding whatever the sting of the rejection is. Yes. But this is actually going beyond that. This is going to not even noticing.
Yes. Well, and one of the things that he gets into in the book is he talks about how he's coached people using this theory on how to sell. One of the examples he's talking about is he went to some trade show, and I don't remember what the trade show was, doesn't matter. And he went to one of the vendors and said, "Can I hand out your pamphlets?" And they're like, "Sure." I mean, I don't know why you want to do that, but yeah, thank you. So his strategy was to see, he had no information or the knowledge of the product. He didn't really, he knew a general idea, but he knew nothing about the product.
Sure.
So he randomly said, "Will you allow me to promote this product that I have no idea what it does and what it does?" And he gave out 10 brochures. 5 of them, he tried to give out 10. 5 of them accepted. 2 of them said, "Oh my gosh, that's exactly what I've been looking for," and ordered the product in front of him.
Oh my God.
So his point was, I don't need a good sales presentation. I was just honest about what I was doing. Here's a product I know nothing about. Can I give you the brochure? Okay. And people appreciate that. It's like, well, he's not, nobody else is saying I'm trying to promote something. Everybody's like trying to say, a sales technique. He's just saying, I'm promoting this. Can I give it to you? And I don't know what it is. It's like, yeah, okay, sure.
That's really interesting.
That's not
really
bad. We know he had a 20% success rate for the 2 that bought. He also, there's 3 more that took the brochures that said they were going to buy. So, that's possibly a 50% sales rate.
Possibly,
which is great for anybody.
Phenomenal.
20% is not bad when you don't know anything about your product.
It's very good. Yeah.
Yeah. So
I think too, one of the things that he kind of stumbled on there, I'm curious to know if he actually talked about this in the book, is that because he didn't have any knowledge of it, he didn't try to come off as having knowledge of it.
Exactly.
Which is that when people talk about the sales approach, people being a salesman, that's what they're talking about. They're talking about, I am so knowledgeable and I'm going to feed all this information to you because I am so knowledgeable. And it's annoying.
Yes. And he did. He said, my lack of knowledge and just transparency that I'm just simply promoting this is, and the point of this, what he was talking about with the segment is, when you're authentic with people and you give them a reason and it's a real reason, like that, their guards down. Yeah, I'll take your brochure and look at it. But when you're trying to set them up, like, okay, tell me what your biggest need is.
We already know that. Yeah. Everybody, as soon as you say the first 3 words, our guard hairs are up. We can just feel it coming. We don't even have to know what the rest of the question is.
Like when I always I buy nice cars, and and when I go, I know people at the places I buy cars from, so I don't get this anymore. But when I sit down, they say, "Well, Mr. Elson, what will it take to get you into this car today?"
Yeah.
When I hear that line, I'm like,
"Where's the door?"
You're not asking me to what it's going to take to get the car. I'll probably give me the car, but that's not going. I'm not going to be sold to. I came here to look at a specific vehicle. We're going to talk price. I'll say yes or no. It's going to be that. If you try to sell me, you're done. If you're going to tell me about that, I've done my research. I don't need your help. And
it reminds me of, I usually don't like to respond to, we've all seen these kind of ads. They call them, what do they call them? There's a word for it. I can't remember what the term is, but it's an online type of thing. A squeeze page. Yeah. They send you to a web page. They call it a squeeze page. That's what the marketers call it. And it's basically a page where the only way you can leave the page is either to close your browser or to click the button to buy. There's no other option.
Right.
And we all recognize those pages, and most of us say, oh God, not that again. And we'll close the button. We'll do whatever it takes to get off the thing. But every once in a while, we'll stumble upon something that we know that what they're going to be talking about is actually something we want.
Yes.
We just don't have to put up with the sales pitch, right?
Right.
But some of them have this really annoying belief system that, well, they've got to give you the whole sales pitch before they even give you the button to click. And you're like, meanwhile, you're tearing your hair out saying, I'm like ready to buy. What the hell are you talking about?
The other day I saw an ad for some kind of vitamin supplement that, did claim to do some stuff. And I was very interested in seeing what the ingredients were. So I just want to know the ingredients.
Right.
And something that they had a chance of me buying it if I could have got. There was no way to get to that without watching the video.
Yeah.
You had to watch the video, then click, and they had this thing, and I'm not going to do all that. So I couldn't search it up because they won't give you the name of what this thing is until the end.
Of course, right. Yep.
So I like that may work for someone, but that's a guaranteed no buy for me. I went in with a potential of buying and left with zero potential of buying.
It has to be something where I absolutely am sure I want to buy the thing. And then I won't even watch the thing. I'll turn it on. I'll turn the sound off on the computer and walk away and come back a half hour later and click the button. Yeah. Just so I don't have to put up with all the crap.
It's silly. And I guess it works or they wouldn't do it, but there's certain people that they push away with that too.
Oh yeah. There's a whole psychology to that. We could talk about that sometime. I want to bring back to this topic though, because the whole idea of dealing with rejection and being rejection proof is really fascinating. I think we've hit on some really cool aspects of it. One thing I am really curious about though, at the end of the day, as he kind of summarizes what his experience was as he's telling his story in his book, what does he find is his feeling about rejection by the time he's at the end of it?
I think he views rejection, and he says this, I'm summarizing, but he gets to a place of rejection is a pathway to getting what you want because it gives you information. Not getting rejected or being fearful of being rejected is a pathway of never getting what you want. It is because you never do it. If you're fearful of doing it, you won't. And if you do it in a scared sense, you're likely to get rejected like his first attempt. The security guard. The security guard said no, but asked him why. And if he would have told him why, I'm doing a blog and I'll bring you the money back later or whatever, there might have been a yes, but he sealed it with no response. He just walked off. And so the idea that rejection is sort of like me, like failure to me is a tool of success. Rejection is on that same path as well.
So let me revisit my question because the question was really about the emotion attached to it rather than the thing itself. What do you think it feels like? What does rejection feel like to him?
I think he feels it is more of a positive thing now. Rejection, he does allude to it, and I'm trying to remember his words, but he sort of likes rejection now. It brings him because it's a fascinating topic for him. So his fear has been replaced. There is no fear of rejection.
So the fear's gone.
Fear's gone. And I think there's and I'm sort of paraphrasing again where he's going. I think he sort of views rejection as a positive now.
I'm wondering if it actually goes full circle to the point where rejection feels exciting.
That would feel. I especially since he was seeking it, I would not be shocked if there was an endorphin release every time he's rejected. So it would be pleasurable. That would be a really good point.
Yeah. I mean, and on the surface, as we hear that, we think, whoa, that's crazy. Who would want to get an endorphin release every time I got rejected? But, if you flip the whole concept around, that's kind of where you end up.
So reframing, it's like reframing things. My reframing of failure, as I said, it's a reframing to make something, I love failure. Failure means I'm trying. I have a totally different view of failure now. So same thing with him with rejection, I'm pretty sure.
As you're saying that, I'm realizing many years ago, I managed to reprogram myself where failure was concerned, but I never did it where rejection was concerned, which is an interesting thing. So I could fail at something and it wouldn't bother me at all, but I could get rejected on something and I would be dead in the water.
Yes.
And really, there's not a whole lot of difference between those emotions.
They're not. They're certainly related, and they're almost identical.
Yeah.
But again, it's your function. So I remembered that I wanted to get a point. Do we got time to get a point in here?
Oh yeah, we got another 5 minutes at least. Sure.
Oh, okay. So the book is amazing. I really recommend everyone listening to it. I did some really, really short paraphrasing on stuff, but you get the overall concept. He's a great talk. It's written very well. I love how it's laid out, and it's great stuff. So, but the surprise part for me it's sort of I'm writing the book, allegedly, The Law of Action. I am writing it, I promise.
You've told us many times.
Yeah, many times, like a few years now. So,
right.
Yeah. So, the idea that the man went out, he had a very specific goal to do an app and be an entrepreneur. He got sidetracked learning to accept rejection. Rejection turned into him being famous for this. He's the rejection guy. He's got a massive blog. He makes a ton of money with his book and speaking engagements. So he ended up being an entrepreneur he was successful, but not the way he thought he was going to be successful.
Right.
So the idea that he took action to be an entrepreneur. You can get stuck on the app is the only way to be the entrepreneur. His realization, and I don't know if he's had this realization, but my realization for him was he is very successful. He's entrepreneurial. He does a lot of great stuff, but it's a totally different direction than that. So when you take action that in a direction, it often manifests, but not in the way you see it. And you could get stuck on either he never got the app done, by the way, because this took off.
Yeah.
So he doesn't need an app. He's got this. And I just find that such a fascinating story of, the twist in it. The lost in this is his desire to be an entrepreneur, his energy to be an entrepreneur, and the entrepreneur spirit. There's no way he could have said, one day I'm going to be an entrepreneurial coach dealing with rejection with a big blog. There's no possible way you could have imagined that.
No, not really.
Yeah. So it is the fact that this is a law of attraction lesson. Most people that try to use the law of attraction sometimes get very specific on what their definition of success is.
Yes.
I got to do it this way. And when you open up the door to what you're manifesting is the spirit of entrepreneurship, where you're making money and you're doing these things, and he does a really good talk about the sort of that real quick entrepreneurial mindset, how you keep going, you fail, you move on, whatever. It's really good. This book is really in depth, but the manifesting of his desire to be an entrepreneur was what I picked up on. What he didn't mention is what I picked up on.
Yeah.
It was like, wow, you wildly exceeded, and never realizing that you brought it into existence. You wanted it, you took action for it, you took and the universe directed you into this really weird, off the wall thing that nobody ever would have thought of. But it's amazing when you look at it that way.
It's also a great example, and the part that you said was the surprise. It's a great example of what many LOA teachers talk about when they say, as you put your request out there, add the words "or better" at the end.
Yes, and that concept of when you're trying to manifest you're really trying to manifest a concept.
Yes.
Whatever you're wanting. A lot of people get stuck on, I want this specifically. And if they don't get that specifically, They think it's not working. You're trying to get, we used this last week. Esther Hicks uses this a bunch. You're trying to attract the essence of what you want.
Right. Right.
You want the essence of what you're trying to make. The specific nature of it can't always be had, but sometimes the essence of what you want, one thing will lead to the other, which leads to the other. And all of a sudden you wake up and you're an expert. You're giving public speaking engagements around the country. You have books, you have this, you have that. And he also goes on to tell this really cool story, that this is sort of a side note, that his wife, who is very instrumental in all of this, her ultimate goal was to work for Google. And as he became successful and, all this and Google's very hard to get on with. Specifically what she wants to do. Yeah. Their acceptance rate is less than Harvard. So it's a really hard thing to get in there.
Yeah.
So he told her, said, you have 6 months. We're going to get you into Google and we're going to do and he used the techniques learned in this. And she got hired by Google.
She did. Wow. Yeah. That is cool. What a cool finishing story.
Yeah.
Great way to wrap up this conversation. Wow. Really good. Really good. I can tell you I'm going to be applying some of these ideas myself in the days and weeks to come, because I have, particularly I'm trying to find somebody. That's a great opportunity to practice overcoming rejections. But anybody, I can imagine other listeners wanting to take this idea to heart and say, you know what, I'm going to desensitize myself to rejections in whatever field I'm in, whatever topic I'm talking about, because it's pretty clear when we do, that's when the rewards come out.
Well, yeah, this, I don't think I've heard this somewhere else, maybe in the book, but 60% of people in the workforce never ask for a raise. Never.
Yeah.
90% of the people that ask for a raise get something.
Get it, yeah.
At least something, yeah. So think about that. I mean, it's
very important.
Most people are the ones that do. So learning to ask, there's relationships. I had a infatuation with this lady a long time ago, and early in my addiction recovery, I couldn't imagine she'd be interested in me.
Oh, one more freeze. We had to get one more freeze in before we were finished for the day, so we got the last Joel freeze happening right now, which will probably clear up in about 10 seconds. Here he is. Okay, yes, now we're through.
Yeah, sorry about that again.
That's all right.
Yeah, so I had this infatuation with this lady many years ago. I couldn't believe she'd be interested in me. I was early in my recovery. I was waiting tables, and I just couldn't envision myself as somebody that anybody could be attracted to, because I had such a terrible situation. And so years go by, and I knew her. She was living on Anna Maria Island, and she was always very nice to me. And so she finds me years later on my life coaching stuff, and she reaches out to me and she said, "Wow, it looks like you're doing great. You come so far." She's really proud. She goes, "Did you not pick up on that? Why wouldn't you ever ask me out?" I said, I just couldn't imagine you would have ever said yes. And she said, "My goodness," she said, "I just kept wondering why won't he ask me out?" And it's just, again, I was so blocked by my assumption she wouldn't want somebody who was not successful, and basically I was poor and all that. It's just it's amazing. So we block a lot of happiness, and it's something that you hope you don't wait till you're 60 to figure it out for most of our audience.
Yes, exactly. Exactly. Don't wait that long. Yeah. More importantly, take some of what we talked about here to heart. Maybe even read the book or listen to the book. I mean, you can listen at twice the speed, apparently. I didn't even know you could do that.
You could do that. You should try it one day.
You learn a new thing every day here on the show. No, this has been good. Thank you very much for bringing this book in. And as usual, we had a wonderful conversation about it. So look forward to next week. We're going to have Sam back in, and we're also going to be joined by another listener named Luke, who's been on the show before. So we're going to be 4 of us. We're going to have like this massive energy thing going on next week. So it's going to be pretty crazy. So anyway, thank you very much. Thank you to our podcast listeners everywhere. We will see you all next time here on LOA Today. Goodbye, everybody.